Yeah.
Just have to accept it, don't I? Look, yeah, we were good.
All right, yo, peace of the planet. I'm with one of my favorite people from the UK. You know, I'm always trying to connect the Bay and the UK on this jujitsu thing, and I'm always trying to connect the planet because, I've really just been thinking about how like crazy the world is politically, socially, and all these other ways. And like, it was really heavy on my heart today that like it's okay to just let people live, right? It's okay to just like live your life and let other people live. And I feel like so many people are trying to impose their way of being on others. Like, man, bro, like there's so many beautiful versions of humanity and there's so many beautiful ways of being, man. So I'm glad to have Coach Kev on deck today. Kev, how are you doing, man?
I'm really good, thank you. Yeah, yeah, really, really good.
So, Kev is a guy I met at GBRL in Leeds, where I used to do a lot of cool stuff with a lot of cool people there. And he and I did a lot of work together to like start and build out the team program. Yeah, I mean, like it was like that it didn't exist, but like we went with the older comp kids and it was really fun, man. And we stayed warm and we stayed cool and we stayed in touch. And he does a lot of great things, not only in the jiu-jitsu space where he's a purple belt and coach of many, but also in the general health and wellness space. So, welcome to Bishop Chronicles. Thank you for being a guest. And how have you been, man?
Yeah, been really good. Super busy, as
Yeah.
always, but like good stuff really. I always like to stay busy, just keep, moving everything forwards. But yeah, healthy. Well, twinged my back a bit trying to do handstands the other day, so not quite up to not quite up to my full state. But yeah, all good. Lots of stuff going at jiu-jitsu as always. Like you
Yeah.
said, lots of
How are the
coaching.
teens, man? How are the comp teens? What's up?
They're good. They're getting good. A few people at Christmas got their yellow belts, so that was really good to see. And obviously, we've got our summer gathering coming up in a month, so
Nice.
there'll be another wave that are due. So yeah, it's great to see. Do you know what the best thing about it is seeing some of those kids that started off and they were like tiny, little dinkies,
How they're all tall and
turn into adults.
hair
Some
on
of
the
them.
face a bit.
Totally. Some of those people have gone into the adults program, so then you're seeing them roughing up some adults. You're like, this
You're
is
like,
awesome.
yeah,
It's the
yo,
best
that's
thing
great.
ever. So I'm looking forward to some of those ladies, like Neve and a few of those people moving up
Ooh,
into
Neve,
adults. She's
bro.
young, but once she gets up into
Neve.
those, she's already beating up the teenage boys, and she's 13.
Listen, man, like I knew way back that she was a G from the beginning. Like honestly, and it wasn't just her technique, it was her mindset, bro.
Oh yeah, she's
Like
focused.
she's about that life. Like if she's ready to compete, I don't know if like her parents like put it in her or if the jujitsu kind of pulled it out of her, if it was always there. I don't know. But I know when it's game time, she's about that life and it's always impressive.
Yeah, no, definitely. And there's a few like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's really good. Jiu-jitsu's good. Keeps me busy, but it's like as you all well know, just sort of coaching and then sitting on the edge of the match, watching people train. Being able to pass on that like information and see someone apply it and get that same kind of like, ding, I get it and use it. And
I
it's just like
know.
that's the best feeling in the world. So being paid to coach jiu-jitsu, it's just like
Yeah.
it's a blessing.
Come on, right? I mean, it's really beautiful, man. It's really
Yeah.
beautiful. So, um because we haven't spoken in general in quite a while, I have a lot in my head. So this conversation may get random, right? To other people, it may get random, right?
Love
But
it.
to me and you, right? Like it won't be random. I wanted to kind of start by asking about your history with martial arts pre-jujitsu. So like before you started at GBRL, or even I don't even know if you did jujitsu at all before you got to GBRL in Leeds. So like tell me about just your life in martial arts pre jujitsu and what that introduction was.
Sure, yeah. So obviously I'm 44 now, so I've only been at GBRL for literally just turned 4 years this month, at the end of last month, sorry. So that's like 40 years without GBRL. I did a little bit before. So basically, I'd done martial arts a long time. I'll go back to that in a sec. So I'd done a little bit of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu before because I knew I wanted to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'd talked about it for a long time, and it was around my sort of 40th, just before my, so I was like 39, and I was just at that point where you're ready to like go and do it, but you just don't want to like commit to doing something else when you do so much. And I was watching videos. I was watching obviously Hiron and Hannah Gracie because obviously they're probably the biggest people in terms of like their online presence, Gracie University and stuff like that. So I was looking at a lot of their stuff. I was like, right, I'm going to go do it. And I was talking about it. In the end, Louise was my partner was just like, please go and do it just to stop you talking about it constantly and watching it constantly. Why don't you just go do it? So I was like, oh, well, that's permission then, isn't it? Let's do it. So yeah, I basically just looked on what their schools were, and it turned out, and you'll know this person. So Josh, obviously, who's now at IMA, he had a school in Bradford called Origin. It was like the most reasonably priced at the time because it was when I was like between kind of setting up my own business, so I didn't have a ton of money. It was really reasonably priced. It was called Origin. So, and my previous gym was called Origin. So I was like, yeah, the fates have aligned. So I was like, cool, let's go check it out. And it was obviously it was a Gracie University setup. Um, so I did that for a little while. Then lockdown obviously came, and sort of made that inconsistent. But I just kept doing. I did all his online stuff all the way through lockdown, and then when we came back, he was super busy with his competitions and stuff. So the timetable was just really limited. So in the end, I knew T already from GBRL. So then I saw he'd like opened this place and bigger timetable. So I messaged him, said, "Can I come down and check it out?" And then that's kind of the story then. So I obviously said to Josh, "Look, I'm moving across. I'm sorry."
Yeah.
Um, but the timetable just doesn't work because I wanted my boy to
And he
start in
was
the kids'
far, like,
classes.
Origin isn't near where you are, right? Because Origin
No,
is
it actually
would
is.
have been more
Yeah,
Bradford, right?
yeah, but it's my side of Bradford, so where the
Oh,
geographically it actually was only 20-ish minutes, and GBRL's the same for me, so it's
oh,
pretty
so
much
you
the
were
same.
heading the same
Yeah,
way.
but it didn't work with like kids classes and stuff like that, and the adults classes. Just times didn't work, and I wanted Harry to start as well, my littlest.
Hmm.
So it
Hmm.
just didn't work. So in the end, he was like, "No, I totally get it." And obviously, then I ended up moving across to GBRL. So I did a little bit. So I'd say probably about 4.5 years of proper study of jiu-jitsu. Before that, I mean, literally, I can't remember a time when I wasn't obsessed with martial arts. Like, as in, like, being tiny. I was like always scrappy, always wrestly. The moment I could understand who Bruce Lee was and what martial arts were, and I was allowed to watch anything from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, anything with like, scrapping in it and martial arts moves in it. Pan throw from Thundercats had nunchucks. What a badass. I was all about that. So yeah, anything martial arts, I was just obsessed. And my dad ended up buying me a Bruce Lee skateboard that had like the Enter the Dragon, with like the slice across his chest and stuff on the bottom
Please tell me
side
you
of it.
have that still. Please tell me you
I
have a picture of it. Do you have a
uh,
picture?
no, no, mate, it's the 80s. We didn't even have cameras. Come on,
Yeah, I know,
we're
right?
that old. It's not like
You
it's not
youngsters
like I
don't
put it
know
on.
what it's like to not have a phone in your pocket all day.
Yeah,
All right.
you,
That's how we grew up. That's how you know we had tough lives. We didn't have no phones in our pocket all day. We had to go get
totally,
them with a flash. You have to push
totally.
it on there and it would go, poof. You know what
And
I'm
then
saying?
go
It was
into go
before.
into town and get it like go take the reel and wait a week to get it back. Like I didn't have patience for that as a kid, and I didn't have the money. So yeah, no photos, just engraved into my memory. And I snapped it in half anyway, doing tricks on it, which I literally cried when I broke it. So that was like my early stuff. So I was like, right, I want to do martial arts, Dad. And obviously, I was constantly trying to use it on my big brother and probably everyone else. So my dad was like, you can do judo. That's the only martial art I'm going to let you do. I was like, judo? Judo hasn't got like flying kicks and stuff. It's just throws. I was like, hell no, I'm not doing that. That's lame. If only I'd have started at like 6 years old at
I
judo.
know.
But that is the thing as a kid, isn't it? It's like you know movie martial arts does not look like judo, and actually in reality when you've studied martial arts a long time you understand like the power of something like judo, especially as a foundation martial art. Like just learning how to blend and move and
Have
footwork and off
balance.
balance. Yeah, it's just yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
I was like, no, 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 don't want to do that. So all I basically did was save up all my money and buy Martial Arts Illustrated, and study every technique in any magazine, and then try out all the sweeps and stuff on my mates. So
That's
I did that
great.
for a long time. And then when I was 10, I was allowed to, no, I was younger than that. I was 9 or 10. My best friend at school was called Kyonsei. He was Korean, he's from South Korea. And his dad was a Taekwondo teacher. So I got really friendly with him and found out he did Taekwondo. So I was like, sweet. So I basically used to go back to his house well, not every day, but too often probably for his parents, bless them. And then he'd give us like a taekwondo class, me and Kyonsei, and his like dining room was like kitted out as a little dojo for him and his family. So it was like full Mr. Miyagi style, which is really cool. So I learned like some movements and kicks. He even gave us, which is probably just because we were kids, he gave us our own like symbol. Which was which is so
That's so cool.
yeah, you know exactly. So he was like, "This is your symbol." So when I started, I'd like stand and I'd have to stand like that with this symbol, and then I'd be like, do my like moves, and
Yeah.
then I'd do my like special like power up move, and then we'd like do our katas and stuff. So that was awesome. And I did that for a little bit, but then after about I think about 8 or 9 months, just before I left primary school, um, he moved back. They moved back to Korea. So that stopped. But at that point, my parents were a bit. So I then dabbled. Went to like the local gym had like
Mm,
karate. I tried that. I was
mm.
like, didn't love it. It was like really kind of stiff and wooden. And not that karate necessarily is, but just the one that I went
Yeah,
to. Yeah, I
yeah, but
went.
the one you were learning was
Yeah,
it.
I went to some hybrid classes. So I tried a few little bits and I kind of dabbled in that for probably about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, something like that. Did a little bit of judo then and tried a little bit of judo out from places. But never like settled in anything. Always wanted to do kung fu and never really came across the opportunity to do it.
Quick question. Was this in Leeds? I'm just trying to make sure. Okay.
Yeah, to Leeds. I moved to Leeds when I was 9.
Okay.
So everything where like that Korean guy was in Leeds when I first
Right.
moved to Leeds. So it's one of my first best friends when I moved to Leeds as well, which is really cool. And then it was just WWF moves as well, obviously, like on the grass with all my mates, Boston crabs and slams and all of like clotheslines and all that stuff. We did that nearly every day in summer, just like WWF.
What was that? What was that leg lock? The Indian figure four.
Oh yeah, the figure of
Remember
four.
that?
Yeah, I do remember that. It blooming hurt as well. Yeah, so
That was really painful.
some of that stuff like was like, of course, it probably wasn't legit to like land in a scrap, but like when
Yeah.
you actually were doing it as a kid, we could like do moves
Yo,
where you do like a clothesline, but you'd catch them and then spin around and you'd end up landing on your backs and stuff. Like proper wrestling moves, but on grass. So you just like every day you'd go home just like nearly with concussion
wrecked,
or spiked yourself because you'd done a forward
wrecked.
flip. So good though. One of my friends did like a clothesline off his bike.
Dude, hey, I'm telling you, there was something about the 80s and the 90s, bro. Like there was an inherent roughness to all childhood.
Yeah,
All
it's awesome. It builds resilience, though, doesn't
It does, it does. Now,
it?
I think one of the things that you and I both have in common is, and have always had in common, is just a love for the philosophy inside the martial arts, right? Like into the Taoism, like what was the book you let me borrow when I was out there? The orange cover with the blue writing.
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah. Was it? It was the sword book, wasn't it?
Yeah. What was that?
Was it this
That's
one?
it.
Yeah, the life-giving sword.
Yeah, that's the Yagyu
Yeah,
Mononori, right?
yeah, yeah. That's the one that's like proper original, like hardback, really nice one.
Yeah, that was really cool, man. Um, you know, I I I as I think about it now, when I was young, I did a little bit of judo as a child, and I did one class of karate, but this was like the old school big afro black dudes coming with that.
Yeah,
And I was like, bro, I'm 7. I'm not built for that. I was like, yo. So I was like, nah. Those dudes were like black belt theater for real. And I
yeah.
was like, I'm out. And so I think a lot of my love for philosophy, and I'm only thinking about it now, I think a lot of my love for philosophy came from not actually training and just kind of digging into the magazines. So like I was like, well, I may not know how to do this move, but what's the Tao? I may not really know how to do this move, right? But
Yeah.
who's Confucius? You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
because
And so
you couldn't necessarily do it physically all the time, but you could intellectualize it and think about it, which is definitely, I agree, that's a big part for me. I was having to, because I was so interested, it didn't need encouragement to think about it, so it was just like, yeah, it's just thinking about all this cool stuff all the time, basically.
do you remember the first martial arts book, not magazine, the first book maybe that dealt with any philosophy that you first took in?
Yeah, that it was Bruce Lee. So it was
Dao Jeet Kune Do?
yeah, I think it was Dao Chi Kung Do. Yeah, there was that and there was one of his little, self-defense part ones, part
Was
two,
that the
part three.
blue cover, the little blue
Yeah,
cover?
yeah, like a little orange cover. I've got them all behind me. That's
Yeah,
why I'm
yeah,
looking
yeah,
at the
yeah, yeah.
titles. Yeah, little orange cover, little green cover, isn't there? Like different colours. They probably did, depending on which publishing house made them in the end, because they obviously just knocked them out, didn't they? But definitely Bruce Lee. The moment I saw Bruce Lee, I would just like anything in a magazine, I would be reading about the Bruce Lee stuff. Obviously no internet, but anytime I got like
Yeah.
in contact, I'd just like hoard it, absorb it, just like want to basically know more about it. I had like black pajama bottoms that I'd walk around the house in, and anything like that. I made my own nunchucks in the garage out of. I
Me
cut my
too.
dad's broom in
Me
parts.
too. In 79, I cut my broom and I
Yeah.
had a little chain and I just got the little screws in. Oh no. But like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was pretty crazy. Now here's the question. I didn't know about the Tao of Jeet Kune Do until I was in my early 20s. I didn't even know he had a book. I knew he was a fighter and a film guy and a philosopher, but I didn't know he had a book until I think it was like my 26th birthday.
Yeah.
Someone brought me the Tao Chi Kung Do, and I was shattered that I was grateful for it, but I was like, how did I not know this was even here? Like, like, how old were you? Tell me about like, kind of.
I can't actually remember exactly how old I'll have been. Probably like 13 or 14. I didn't really
Really, that's
understand.
so
Yeah,
cool,
didn't really
man.
understand it though. It was more like
Yeah, it
just
was
kind of look
big.
at the pictures and stuff like that. Like for me at that age, it was more like, watching Dragon, the Bruce Lee story, watching the movies. My dad was a martial arts dabbler. So he did
Mm,
kendo quite seriously at uni and a
okay.
bit of judo. And he told me he did Tiger Kung Fu for a bit, but I've never seen any real evidence.
We still don't believe.
But no, I think he did. I think he dabbled at uni. He got lots of martial arts stuff.
Right,
But
right.
he had like quite a few books as well, and Shogun books and things like that. Loads of
Mm,
Japanese books. He was, even like they were really strict with me watching movies and 18s. For whatever reason, I could watch Jackie Chan, I could watch Bruce Lee. I guess because he liked watching them as well. So I watched quite a lot of that stuff fairly young as well. But yeah, I was not even a reader until I got into my 20s, to be honest with you. So I had some books, but again, it was more just like something a bit like a magazine that you pick up, you look at for 10
yeah,
minutes, and then you put
yeah,
it down again.
right.
It wasn't till basically after I was into loads of other stuff. So obviously, martial arts was never like forced on, in terms of practice. I did rugby and I did kayaking. And I used to coach kayaking and I did loads of like, outdoor stuff. So I was so busy, I never really dedicated all my time to martial arts. It wasn't until I went through my like band era, DJ era, where I obviously strayed quite far from the path and spent my time staying up, maybe sometimes not going to sleep for like 2 days, DJing, partying, all that stuff. And then I randomly bumped into a tour manager who was like a friend of some of the bands that I was touring and stuff with. And he was like, "Oh, I do combat Tai Chi." I was like, "What the hell is combat Tai Chi?" I was like, "I think I know what Tai Chi is. It's like that granny stuff."
Hmm.
But I don't know what combat Tai Chi is. So he told me about it, and it's like, well, and it was the first time I'd like been directly in touch with someone who had been doing like kung fu
Yeah,
martial arty based
in a real
stuff when he
state. Yeah.
explained it. Yeah, like for a long time, he'd been doing it for like 6, 7 years or something. So in my head, it
Mm.
was like pretty legit. So anyway, it's like, well, just come and meet the guy. Come down with me. It was at a leisure centre, so I just went, and then it was like Tai Chi, but then it was like then learn using the applications of the moves, understanding what the slow movements mean, and then almost modernizing them. Then there'd be like sparring and kind of technical kind of like, if this happens, do this, like in jiu-jitsu, you kind of you do that, you do your specific training, then you do some sparring at the end. And I was just
Yeah.
like, oh, this is different. This is cool. This is like relaxed, but like flowing. It's much more like what I like the idea of, like this kind of and it wasn't like a scrappy and it wasn't like really rigid and formal. It had like the perfect balance between there was some intensity to it, but it still felt safe and within the realms of what I could do because I've never really done any martial arts
And
seriously.
what
So I
year
don't want
was
to get.
this?
So this was 2000. So I was
So like,
20.
do you know who Josh Waitzkin is?
No.
So Josh Waitzkin was one of the best American chess players of the late 80s and 90s. He was a kid though, and he was like brilliant as fuck. Anyway, he bails on chess and goes into kung fu and tai chi, and he ends up being like a tai chi world champion type dude with the combat tai chi. And his book, The Art of Learning, is about that journey. And then he befriends Marcelo Garcia and
Ah,
becomes the first American black belt under Marcelo.
sweet. That's
Yeah,
cool, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So we used
Yeah.
to kick it and talk, and his book, The Art of Learning, is must read
Oh, I've
stuff.
never read that, so I'll
Yeah,
definitely grab
the
that.
art of learning, bro. You'll love it. Like I know
Yeah.
you'll.
Especially with
Uh,
that background because it's really interesting.
yeah, you know what I mean.
Mm. Yeah, so I did that for a few years, just that, and that kind of pulled me out of obviously the late nights and stuff because I wanted to get up and train. I was doing like qigong exercises and breath work within all of that stuff, So I was like smoking at the time, and I'd come out and I'd like finish the class doing loads of breath work, and I'd smoke. It's just like so. I remember one time standing outside, go, "Why am I doing this?" So I decided I was going to quit smoking. So and it really sorted me out to be honest, because I was like probably starting to really delve into like way too many late nights, too much weed smoking, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So it pulled me out of that funk and got me going. And then, of course, the main style of the forms that we learn, and this guy's like right up your street, is like in China is revered as like the master of masters. Is a guy called Sun Lutang,
Okay. I
and
already
he
like it.
basically
Let's go.
yeah, he started basically. He started with a martial art called Xing Chuan, which is like a kind of a very linear warfare type of martial art, very forwards like that
Mm.
linear stuff. He like mastered that super quickly, so his teacher was like, "Look, you're a badass. Go do this other martial art called Bagwajang, which is
I know.
another
Yeah, yeah,
internal
yeah.
martial art, but the opposite. It's like flowing, lots of circular movements, so it'll complement Xing Chuan." So he went off and did that, and he became incredible at that. At that point, he was now like bodyguard for like local rich people and all the rest. So
Yeah.
he ended up being like the guy that taught the emperors like bodyguards basically. Yeah, and just to finish that little bit, so then he also then after that he found this guy like randomly. I can't remember the exact story, but I think he was just like he was traveling. He found this guy who was really sick, and because he had a background in medicine as well, he then healed this guy, made him better. He turned out to be the head of Wu style Tai Chi. So because he basically saved this guy's life, he was like, "I'll teach you Wu style Tai Chi." So he is the person that mastered Xing Chuan, Bagua and Wu style Tai Chi, and basically technically united like all the three internal martial arts, which is they're classed as the three internal martial arts in China. Like White Crane and a few other things kind of sit on the cusp of that, but the
Mm.
three kind of core ones are classed as those three. So he brought all those together, and then he created his own form which is called Sun style Tai Chi. It's known if you're in like Tai Chi world, but it's not known at all.
Yeah,
Most
you
people do
would.
Yang style.
Well, you know what's interesting? You mentioned Bagua because Riza told me that, and he told me the history. I wish I remembered. Man, I feel bad right now. But like he was explaining that a lot of the kung fu in New York is Bagua, and he explained why. But I wish I could tell you that history. But he
Yeah, there'll
broke
be a
that
particular
down.
person that came over
Yeah,
then
yeah,
and had
yeah,
that
yeah.
strong
You know what I
influence.
mean? So he's like a lot of the people, especially the black people that ended up doing kung fu end up doing bagua. I don't know why, but he broke that down. I don't remember why though.
Yeah, okay. And that,
Yeah,
and with
next
Wu-Tang,
time I see him, which hopefully will be soon, I will find out and I'll loop back with you. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
With the
Um,
Wu-Tang stuff as well, obviously that links in because Bagua is all about the eight trigrams. So, and obviously, as you well know, the artwork and the obsession with the eight trigrams from like, and obviously then the 16 chambers and all the
of
stuff, the
course, come
32.
on, let's
So
go.
it all comes from that. And Bagua is all based around, that's what Bagua means, like bat is eight. It means eight.
I
So
got you.
it's like this circular movements, and each of the trigrams represents a different like hand or position. That means it's like
Mhm.
yang, 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 yin, yang, yin, yin. So that's what
Right,
it
just
is. It's the
yeah,
variations of yin and yang. That's what it all is based around. So it's like a
yeah,
very philosophical martial art in that sense. Very much about the Book of Changes,
right. I changed.
Taoism. It's very much, all of those are based, especially Tai Chi and Bagua, are based around Taoism and the seasons and changes and stuff like that.
Dude, I got these two students. The boy is E and the girl is Ching.
Sweet, nice.
Like, what?
That's
Not
cool.
the I Ching.
That's cool,
How
isn't it?
hard is that?
Yeah.
Bro, I just love them both. They're amazing and they're tough. But like, I think that's the coolest thing. Like, I was thinking about them last week. I was like, they could be superheroes or like movie. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's movie stuff.
Yeah, combine them and they can see the future.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Um,
Nice.
so, getting into the nerdy aspect of wellness, tell me about Fit to Thrive. Tell me about how you've taken all of that history plus your jujitsu history and turned it into Fit to Thrive. And what do you guys do for people?
Yeah, well, I guess with that as well, like just from where we left off there, they're sort of doing the Sun style, so I'll keep it brief because also I could go
Mm,
on for ages. But once I did that Sun style, I realized there were like these three internal styles within it. So I was like, right, I want to go and find the history of these three internal styles because if I don't understand like the foundations of those martial arts, I did it for a long time, the forms, the movements, and I was like, I'd like to know like the roots and kind of do that. So that's what led me to China, basically. So then I was like, well, there's no one in this country doing these like niche martial arts. There was one guy I went down to London to do it, and it was, I did a course down like a day course with him. There was bits like that, but there's nothing quality. So then I was
enriching.
like, right, yeah. Then I was like, right, I need to go to China and like go and do it. So that's what I did. I booked in, went to China the first time, and
How
and
old?
so 23 the first time I went.
Okay.
I was quite young, went by myself, and I basically, yeah, I tried some different, I went and trained with different masters. Then one of my contacts here took, like, I went over with him. So then I went and trained with some different Tai Chi masters, and I went to the Wushu Institute, met Wu Bin, which is Jet Li's teacher, and did stuff there.
Can I ask
Um,
how you were received? Was it cool? Like, oh, it's the English guy and it's cool, or was like it's the English guy and I'm gonna like pull his heart out? That
No, no, like super cool. Like definitely, obviously, you're not training with the necessarily always with the people there, but that would be like being a white belt walking into a room of black belts and going off you go. Like those people in those places have just been training for years. So a lot of time you're with other Westerners because you're like even though I've been doing it a number of years, in reality I'm not doing it every day in like almost like a school syllabus.
yeah,
Over there, martial
yeah,
arts is like a school syllabus. You can just study martial arts at university.
and
That's
just
it.
do
That's
it.
your degree. Yeah, you just become like you do Shaolin, you do Sandai, you do all these different things, and then you get a degree in martial arts. Um, so yeah, I did that, and then I went back a few more times and kind of met different. So did some Bagua, some Xingyi, went to the Shaolin Temple obviously a few times and trained there. And by accident, because of the translation problems, I actually ended up having to. They were like, yeah, you can do Xingyi, yeah, you can do Bagua, and I got there and they're like, oh. Oh yeah, sorry. We didn't realize you can't do it as like the only subject. It's there like there's only like a few classes because again even there it's more niche. So like you can do that on Tuesday afternoon, Thursday afternoon, Friday afternoon, and Saturday morning for 2 hours, but you have to be doing something every day from 6 o'clock right through till 8 o'clock at night. So what do you want to do? And I was like, oh, well, I didn't want to do like Tai Chi because obviously I'd got a lot. So and then they were like, why don't you just do Shaolin Kung Fu then? So I was like, all right, cool, I'll do that. So it's called Chan Chuan, basically like Northern Long Fist.
Right.
So my main syllabus then was just low stances, being forced into splits positions,
Mhm.
hundreds of kicks one after another, and all that stuff. But and all the forms and stuff. But I loved it, and obviously went to the temple, saw it being done there, got taught there by people,
What was the
and
food like though?
oh, I mean, the food is like amazing. Yeah, I love the food. Like any Chinese foods, because it's like homemade food. It's not like, here it's like Hong Kong banquet
Yeah,
food.
yeah, exactly.
That's not like what day to day is.
Yeah,
So it's
exactly.
spicy. In North China, there's lots of chilies.
Okay.
Yeah, loads of really nice bao buns and fried dumplings and stuff. Yeah, I could eat that stuff all day long. Never got sick of it. So yeah, that's so basically I got there, and then the only last bit to finish that story, so it puts all of the rest of it in context, I guess, is when I was training at the Shaolin Temple, they were absolutely flogging you, loads of hard stretches, and every day I had like the worst DOMs. So in the end, I was like, right, I want to go and get a massage because I can't walk. So can I go and where should I go and get a massage? So we're like, oh, there's this guy down here, go there. They're really good. They do massage. They call it Anmor, basically, which means massage. So I went and got this thing. The next day, woke up, felt amazing. So I was like, right, I'm just going to go there every day. It was £1 for like between 60 and 90 minutes, depending on what they were doing. Yeah, it was like the cheapest thing ever. It barely cost anything. It's so cheap. So I'd just go there each day, and I did that for like the first few days just to kind of get rid of like the soreness until I got used to it. So I was there for quite a long time. And in the end, I was like, this is amazing. What's it called? And they kept saying Anmor. I was like, isn't Anmor massage? They're like, yeah. Like, what type of massage is it? If I wanted to go home, they're like,
Right, right, right.
Anmor,
Exactly.
Anmor, Anmor. I was like, it's not Anmor. In the
No,
end, someone was
right.
like, Tweenar. And I was like, Tweenar. So then I could Google that,
We
obviously.
not. Listen,
Tweenar.
everybody. Tweena works for real. You may wonder how how does Adisa know that Tweena works for real? Well, Kev made it so I could walk. I had horrible sciatic pains after some training out there at GBRL, and I was locking up and it was getting worse. And Kev was like, I think I can help with that. And I was like, okay. But I didn't know what to expect. Bro, the best healing massage ever that I got was from him legit.
Oh,
I've
thanks.
never forgotten that
Oh,
session.
thank you.
Like
Yeah.
I mean, I felt absolutely brand new.
Well,
You know?
that's exactly why it's made such an impact on me because it was like I'd had massage before, but more Swedish and stuff like that, or sports
Hmm.
massage, which is just like elbows in immediately,
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah. We're just leaning
loads
on
of
that
pain.
knot, you know?
Yeah, which is great, but it couldn't come out feeling really tight and tense everywhere else. So yeah, I had that. It was amazing. I came back to the UK. I was like, right, I want to, and again, like the yin and yang principles, obviously very much like you were saying from young,
Hmm.
being into the philosophy and this idea of thinking about life in terms of yin and yang and the middle way. I was like,
Hmm.
right, if I'm a martial artist, I should learn a healing martial art, which is what obviously Sun Lu Tang did as well.
Hmm.
So I was
Hmm.
like, right, I'm going to learn Tui Na. It's badass. And it was when the recession was coming. So I was like, I know I need to quit my job. I was landscape gardening at the time to pay for me to be able to do martial arts. I was teaching it a little bit at that point as well. So I was like, right, I'm going to do it. So I Googled a guy. So happened that like the best guy in the UK who's from London. Also, his family lived in York at the Northern College of Acupuncture, and he was doing he was launching a new course. So he was like, look, it's cheap, but I promise you, it's going to be the best thing you've ever done. If you trust me, I will
Right.
like. And I was like, oh, do I put like this much money in and trust this like random guy? He seemed really good. So I went over. He said, come and have a massage. He gave me a massage. Like, this is better than what I had in China. Holy crap!
Wow.
He now goes and lectures in China. He's like the only Jamaican guy in all the pictures. Just loads of Chinese professors with glasses,
And
and
what's his
then
name?
Errol, like, yeah, Errol Lynch.
Dude, listen, man. Arrow Lynch is amazing because you're amazing.
He's
And
like another
like
level to
it
me.
was such a healing experience. Like I never forgot that. Like legit, I never forgot that. I didn't expect that I wouldn't feel better, but I felt fully better. You know what I'm
Mm,
saying? Like
yeah.
not like, oh, I guess I'm cool. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, if you feel, yeah, it's definitely really powerful. And obviously it's good because the beauty of Tuinao is it combines, and especially the way that Errol teaches it. So he did years of shiatsu first, and obviously shiatsu comes from Tuinao anyway. He was qualified in sports massage and all these different aspects, so he was able to see it from like a Western and an Eastern kind of point of view, and then obviously teach that really well. So yes, there was acupuncture, but also then he was teaching you, well, if it's a sports injury, you need to do it this way. And that is what Tui Na really is. It's a medical massage. So in China, you go into a hospital, you say you have any kind of main ailment, and that's what they'll give you. So you won't go to a physio, you go to a Tui Na practitioner who does all that, gives you exercises, gives you a massage. That's why you do it
Wow.
for a sheet, because you've got a clinic full of beds. People aren't getting naked. You just literally, they lie down, you throw a sheet over them, and you get to work. And then you can
Wow.
do acupuncture, pull back the sheet, and do acupuncture, acupressure. You can do, they even do like some bone setting and stuff like that, you know. So there's chiropractic and kind of osteopathic
Right,
techniques
right,
within it.
right, right, right.
So it's much more than like a lot of people when they see massage are just like, oh, you're just doing this. In reality, there's a lot more to it.
No, it's yeah, it's way bigger.
It took a long time to learn. So yeah, I
Does
did
he
that,
still
and then
teach? Does he still teach in
yeah,
York?
he's got clinics in York. He's got, yeah, he's, I don't know what. I mean, I think I was second. His first one was like literally a few people. I think I was like second generation. The second generation is where he actually had like textbooks and stuff to give people. The first one was
That's
just
so
like
cool
on the
though,
fly.
man.
Yeah, so even the textbooks, I've still got them. We've got like pictures missing where it says photo needs to go here for later, you know, like that level. You still hadn't fully put it all together. But now he's got like a large group of people training in London and York, and he's got practitioners going to hospitals now, treating people like into sports teams. He's treated some famous sports players and stuff, some
How
Arsenal
do you
football
spell
players. And
Tuina though?
Tuina. So Tui is one of the techniques, Na is another of the techniques. Yeah, Tui Na, Tui gap Na. And people say tuna because they don't see the I. So, yeah, but yeah, Tui Na.
People say tuna.
But yeah, so I
That's
did that basically. Absolutely loved that. Again, it was so successful, like you say. I ran his clinics. I really liked it. So he asked me to run his clinics in York. So I did some of those. I worked in the Northern College of Acupuncture,
hmm
studying from him directly, and then obviously helping run the clinics when he was down in London. He actually asked if I'd open a clinic in London in Euston, but I didn't want to live in London, so I stayed here, and I ended up opening a clinic in Leeds. And that was the first time started my own business. Basically, I'd opened a business, so I was teaching Tai Chi, I was teaching Kung Fu, and then I
You
was
were
running
all
my
in, is what you're
Tuina.
trying to tell me.
Yeah, I was running my Tuina clinic, and that's where it started. So that leads into Fit to Thrive, really. So just lots of amalgamations of that, then just doing stuff wrong. You know, I moved to Manchester, set up a gym, got married. That was going really, really well. I was doing fitness and the gym. So I did obviously all my gym qualifications during all that time as well. So I could do that and PT. Um, and I had a really good business called Origin in Manchester. But when I broke up with my partner, it got very complicated because
Mm,
the unit was let by her dad. He had a number of different units. That one was empty, and he was like, "Why don't you
of
take it?" So I was like, "Cool, that'd be amazing." Obviously, perfect. But then when we
course.
broke up, it became very complicated.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I
So,
can
and
imagine.
yeah, so in the end, I moved back to Leeds. And then obviously that's when I was like, right, I'll start working in the background to build my own business. I met Louise just after about a year after I broke up with my ex. Um, and then obviously that all started. And that's where we are now,
New
running Fit to
chapter.
Thrive. So yeah, we obviously have a gym business now. I teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which obviously ticks nicely the martial arts box. At the minute, I don't teach any Tai Chi or Qigong or anything like that. It's just kind of, it was quite nice actually after years of teaching it just to come back and be the student again.
Yeah,
At some point, you know, within the fitness realm and the well-being, I've taught breathwork sessions within corporate wellness quite a bit, you know, and Qigong and stuff like that.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, at the minute, the fitness, obviously, we've got the gym. I do quite a lot of corporate wellness, I guess, a bit like you do with your
yeah.
bits and pieces, go and
Jesus.
do talks with different businesses and things like that.
Yeah,
And that's really good. So yeah, me and Louise run our own business, got our own gym.
that's
It's
so
good.
beautiful,
Life is
man.
good. Yeah.
Congratulations to both of you on so much success, and I hope God opens the door for more. You know what I'm saying? That's really
Yeah,
beautiful.
well, like I say, there's a project brooding in the background. I'm working really hard in the background for what I class as like my passion, my life passion project, really, I guess, which will be, you know, a live on the project, retire on the project, and ideally a legacy piece that it passes on to like another generation. So, you know, it's early doors, but basically all of the stuff that I do, a huge piece of land, and convert it into like a massive, you know, a massive health retreat, basically, long term.
That's beautiful, man. So, hey, I gotta run some philosophy stuff by you because you know this is what we do.
Yeah.
So, there is a Taoist book that very few people know about called The Master of the Hidden Storehouse, and it's incredible. I'm just gonna read some of my favorite pieces
Sweet, let's
from
do it.
Master Storehouse and just reflect on it. It's like so the master says, remove the solid and there is liquid. Remove the liquid and there is gas. Remove the gas and there is emptiness. Remove the emptiness and there is the way. I love that.
Mm.
I just really love the way that that flows.
Yeah, because that's the same as the Tao Te Ching. Like, if you can name it, it isn't the Tao.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so it's just like you can't. The Tao is formless. Like basically, it's there's nothing to it. That's cool. I really like that.
Yeah. Here we go. Here we go. Um, these two men were talking, and the grandee of Chen inquired, he said, like, there's this sage. We have a sage in our state. Do you know him? And Chen inquired, what actually shows that he is a sage? The aristocrat Lu replied, he is able to still his mind and yet use his body. I love that. Still the mind and use your body. Um, the master of the hidden storehouse said, my body is merged with my mind is merged with energy, my energy is merged with spirit, and my spirit is merged with nothingness. I love that.
Mm.
Yeah, the master of the hidden storehouse is really dope. And then there's another one called the master of Demon Valley. Um, Master of Demon Valley is hard. I'll just grab two things out of it real quick. Thus, if you observe how everyone and everything, even down to insects, can be beneficial in some way and harmful in some way, then you can produce excellence in undertakings. What gives rise to undertakings is subtle momentum. This is to be discussed after having figured out psychological conditions and frame them in elegant expressions. I like that idea of elegant expression. You know what I mean?
Mm.
That like, um, I don't care what martial art you're talking about. And then to transcend it in martial art, it can apply to dance, it can apply to speech. Like when you see an elegant expression, we all know it, right? You know, no one has to tell you that it's an elegant expression, right? Even if you don't know that thing,
Yeah,
you may not know dance or how to dance, but when that dance is done elegantly, you may not know jujitsu, but you can go, oh, that was, you know what I mean? I
yeah,
love that. I love that.
absolutely. Yeah, that's isn't. I think that's like I think even if you put it into the context of your own martial art, you have elegant. So let's say Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Mhm.
The moment you have those elegant expressions are really far and few between. They might come every 6 months sometimes.
Yeah.
You might do a throw that just was completely effortless. It all just came together
Mhm.
perfectly. It finishes, and you have that moment of like, that's what everything should feel like. So it's like a little insight into what you talked about in terms of like, you know, you can move your body with a still mind. That is exactly that. It's a moment of like the Tao, the way, and you do it
Totally.
and that's it. You connected. You like, that is the moment I connected perfectly. Everything came into one, and it's an incredible feeling. And even though you might not get that again for months or even sometimes like a year or something, it's so good that it keeps you going back every single day, getting crushed,
Yeah.
hit, whatever martial art you do,
Yeah.
just to do it one more time. And eventually, obviously, ideally, more and more those things just
To get a
come.
sliver of that expression, to get a
But it
sliver
won't
of that
come.
presence.
Yeah, but it won't come all the time. People, unless you are like literally this sage that can like live in that life. Like basically that is what the Buddha achieved, isn't it? Like Buddha was a human being that basically achieved that. It took him all that time to achieve what you class as enlightenment. If you could elegantly express everything in your life all the time, you are
Mhm.
enlightened.
Mhm. Mhm. No,
Um,
it's
and
deep, man. It's
and
it's deep.
you see it and recognize it because you're a human, so there's part of you that knows what that connection is.
It's real. It's very real.
It's an amazing, yeah. It's like, now and then you'll get it with meditation where you'll just have those moments where your brain, yeah, for whatever reason, you think you're meditating, but you're not. And it's like your brain's busy. And then all of a sudden, it's almost like you come out into a clearing and it just happens. And all of a sudden, your brain's just like, oh, wow, I thought I was meditating. Now I'm meditating,
Yeah.
you just feel, and it might, and then might get a bit excited, so you lose it, or maybe you enjoy it for a little bit and then you get distracted again. But those moments the same, aren't they? That is like, you don't see it, that's like an internal art then. Like
It's real.
internally, I'm doing exactly the same thing as the perfect throw or the perfect sprinter for 100 meters or whatever, where
Hmm.
the flow state's there. It's just all connected. You are just connected to the whatever the universe is, whatever that center point is.
Totally. Can I ask you, as someone that was beautifully stated, by the way, can I ask you, as someone who still trains in traditional martial arts, despite doing jujitsu and elevating and coaching, as a purple belt, like, you know, I believe in the beauty and the value of traditional martial arts because it's the foundation of MMA. I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have MMA without the traditional foundation. What, to a jujitsu practitioner or an MMA aspirant, would you say is the value of traditional martial arts in general? And what is the value that you find in continuing to train now, despite doing the cool thing, which is jujitsu? Right.
For me, it's everything else around the time when I'm on the mat, and obviously the application on the mat is there too. But what I'd say is, so for me, I can only really talk in the sense of like
Yeah.
Shaolin arts. And again, it's interestingly, probably talk about this anyway. Shohung Yi was talking about this idea of most people think about Shaolin being Shaolin Chuan, which means fist or like fighting, because
Mm-hmm.
they see all the guys, breaking bricks and
Mm-hmm.
snapping sticks and bending spears and all that sort of stuff. So they see it as like this sort of circus kind of thing. But he was saying it's not Shaolin Chuan, it's also Shaolin Chan. Now, Chan is basically what Zen is. Zen is the
Yes, the
Japanese
meditation
version of
aspect.
Chan, right?
Yeah.
So it's Chan Buddhism. So Zen came from Chan.
Right.
And he was saying he it's about the balance between Chuan and Chan. So you'll
Mm,
find this. So like let's look at one of the most famous Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artists of all time, Rickson Gracie. Yeah, like obviously incredible fighter, but did he just do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? He didn't. He also then went away and had to learn breath work because it
you
helped him stay
did.
calm and a clear mind and
Right.
kept his body physical. He did strength training, and you look at any one, most people will do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and then they'll have to do other things to to reinforce that. And that's what I love about like the Shaolin stuff is, in my opinion, it's a complete system. Not that it's necessarily the best system for just martial arts, because again, if you want to be a specialist, then you have to just do one thing, but that comes at a sacrifice of missing lots of other things. So
Right.
for me, I don't want to be a specialist. I don't want to be the best martial artist in the world. That's not my goal. My goal is to be like the best human I can possibly be. And to me, that means balance, right? And again, if I go to the yin and yang and like the idea of yin and yang is the bits that people see, but in reality, that they're the distraction. It's the line that travels between the two, the middle path, which is what we're trying to
My
find.
man.
Yeah, you have to go to the yang to know what, you can't know what the middle is unless you've gone to one side and the far side, and then you find the middle, right? So for me, Shaolin martial arts, it goes from the very yang to the very yin. It has Sandar, which is the very yang. Sandar is like, again, people don't know this, but Sandar is basically the fighting style of Shaolin Kung Fu. It is exactly like Muay Thai. In the Shaolin Temple in the UK, the guys go from there and they fight all the Muay Thai London schools. Um, it's a full combat fight system. People don't see that, so they're like, "Oh yeah,
One of my
Shaolin martial
boys
art, all the
does Sanda.
forms."
I got a
Yeah,
couple friends that do Sanda. I got a guy named Brett Sweet, and then Joshua Peters, who's also a BJJ black belt in DC. They both do
yeah.
Sanda. Yeah.
And if you see it, you'll know it's legit. Like if
It's
you do Sandar,
legit, bro. They
there's also
thug.
Kong Lee, who is obviously in
Ung
UFC
Lee
doing
from the
Sandar.
Bay.
Yeah, yeah. So there's plenty of people that have got that background that are very effective in martial arts. So they do that. That's the yang. And then the very yin is then they practice Buddhism, they meditate, they chant, they sit. with incense sticks or whatever, and they kind of work on their very far like spirituality side. And in between that, you then have meditation, you have qigong, which is about, revitalizing your body, bringing breath in, making the body more
Hmm.
efficient on like a scientific level, but also understanding what energy is in the body and becoming sensitive to it, so you can sort of move it and feel it and kind of understand what the energy in your body is, whatever you think of that. It's not some, people think about this like mysterious thing. We're full of energy, electrical energy, all the rest of it. You know,
Wow.
if you get good at stuff, like I'm finding this now because I'm doing a lot of target shooting because I'm really sensitive, you can feel your heart beating really clearly. And then I know to shoot, squeeze the trigger between my heartbeats, just like archers did back in the day
Mm.
as well. It's no different.
True.
And that's just about internalizing and understanding your body, isn't it? So you can do your qigong, you can do your forms, which builds strength. So it might be your more like physical form, which builds
Hmm.
like leg strength, low down, tense positions. That's to build strength and obviously start to understand some of the movements that you'll do and build like conditioning into your body so you're strong enough to fight.
For
They
real.
don't use gyms, they just use those forms
Right.
as
They
a way
just
to
use,
build
yeah, their
strength, right?
bodies and nature and whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, you've got like the softer forms as well. So Shaolin also has like soft forms, which are like much more like Tai Chi, which is what's made me get back into it more. I do less Tai Chi now because Shaolin also has Tai Chi forms within it. So for me,
Wow. I didn't
I've
know
got the
that.
whole spectrum. I can at home I can do meditation and qigong and my forms. I can then go down to London to the Shaolin Temple and I can do the sandar classes and spa and kind of and do like the sort of technique based stuff and learning how to do takedowns and kicks and all the rest of it. And I can do all that within one art.
Can you tell me, first of all, that's amazing. And I love that you pursue all of these paths with equal passion and a balanced sense of discipline. What was it like to meet the Shaolin master? Like I've seen videos of him. One of my friends, William Mulligan, um, who wrote the Everyday Stoic, which is like one of my favorite books on Stoicism. He interviewed him, and that was my introduction to him actually.
Yeah.
What was it like to be with him? What was it like to sit in his presence? Was there anything you experienced that you didn't expect from the um, meeting?
I think if it had been the first time I'd spent time with someone like that, then it would have been different.
Mm,
Because if I told you the first time I met like masters in China, they were those moments. Because at that point, you kind of, it's almost like this kind of euphoric experience when you first meet them. You're so excited,
right.
and they clearly have this. As you well know, you meet anyone. Carlos Gracie Jr. was the same. You've met
Yeah, Xi
plenty
and
of
Ming for me, you know what I'm saying?
incredible martial artists that are masters in their own right. They just have something about them. They have this deep knowledge, this confidence, and they move in a particular way. So obviously, I've seen that a lot in the Shaolin Temple anyway. Shaolin Temple UK, the two masters down there are like legit. The main master at the Shaolin Temple UK was 15 years Sandar champion, like unbeaten. His brothers also absolutely incredible, and actually Shi Hung Yi, his hero, his growing up were those two in the UK because they'd gone from China and set up a temple in the UK, which is now a World Heritage Site, is protected. They've been there since their 80s, so they've been there a long time. So he looks up to those guys, and when he comes over, he trains with them, and he also they go over back to China, so they spend a lot of time together anyway. So I've had that experience. So for me, the reason why I really wanted to meet him was because when I couldn't train in lockdown, I was like, what am I going to do? And it so happened that he launched his self-mastery 12-month program online course at that point. So this is when he did his TED talk, which obviously exploded.
Yeah, that was huge.
I watched that. It was fascinating. That's what led
Yeah,
me into him because I followed Ted and I saw it on there. I was like, oh, sweet, Shaolin Monk on TED Talks. Like, let's have a
let's
listen.
go.
And of course,
Yeah,
he wasn't talking about fighting at all, was he? He was talking about the 14 virtues and the
yeah.
Shaolin virtues. So it was more about Shaolin Chan, not Shaolin Chuan, not the fist, but the philosophy.
Hmm.
So that's led me to his website. I looked at the website and then I did his 12-month course. And then I've been doing that online as well as going to the temple in London as my like way because there's no one in the UK. So I
Oh,
train
cool,
myself and then
man.
so it was like a chance to I've been on this guy on Zoom calls for, 3 years, maybe more. When was lockdown? Yeah, 2022. So like
Yeah.
yeah, three plus years. So it's a chance to meet him. And then that's the beauty. Wasn't disappointed because, of course, he was legit. Like, lots of other masters I've met, very friendly, very calm, incredibly insightful. I think that's what I like about him. What you actually find with a lot of Shaolin masters is they were kids that basically grew up from 5 years old in the temple. A lot of them are like quite laddie and they love a scrap. They're proper scrappy, and they don't. And also their way of action. Shaolin Kung Fu, they say, is walk. You basically have to walk through the valley of pain. That is what training at Shaolin is. It's learning to basically, all their smashing stuff is because they just learned to like go somewhere else and they condition their
Hmm.
bodies and they just break stuff. They don't think about pain like we do. It's crazy resilient. So a lot of them are like that. They don't really talk much. They don't really philosophize much. It's just like you come, I'll tell you what to do, follow it, ask a question, and if it's a stupid one, they'll tell you. In China, you don't ask questions, they don't speak English, right? So they're
Right.
tapping you with sticks to correct you, sometimes hitting you a bit
Hmm.
if you're being lazy, and you have to copy. So it was nice because it's not very often you get he sat down and did a talk to start with, and he talked about his background and stuff like that. And then we did some workshop stuff. And of course, straight away, we were into deep stances, sweating, standing still for 10
Hmm.
minutes and this stance
Hmm.
into that stance and movement patterns and stuff. So there was nothing that he did that I haven't done and I don't train. But it was really nice to just talk to him, spend a bit of time with him, ask him a few questions. Yeah, it was more that experience. It was like meet the
It's
guy that
beautiful,
you've. It's
man.
weird when you've trained with someone online because you feel like you know them already, even though you've never met them.
Right, even though you've never met them. Now, can
Yeah.
I ask you, when you're in those situations in London or just around any of the people who do the traditional martial arts, do they ever know that you do jujitsu, and have you ever sparred with them in any way? And what has that experience been like?
Yeah, I mean, one of the better examples of so one of my friends is very good at Wing Chun. And he studies directly under Ip Chun's main student in the UK. And I go there every now and then, just rock up, and I know them. I've sort of played around.
Yeah.
They're happy for me to go and just again, it's just another
Yeah,
martial art.
yeah,
Every now and then I go, but they're really interested. I mean, the Shaolin Temple, they do grappling stuff anyway, and they have someone there who's actually one of their he's English, but one of their like masters there. He's been doing it since the 80s. It's called Daniel, and he's got an MMA background, so he does a lot of grappling and jiu-jitsu stuff. So he's the main guy that teaches. So they do MMA classes there anyway,
so
with a
they're
Shaolin.
not ignorant to the.
Oh, no, they're really forward thinking. They do grappling classes, they do sparring classes, they do, again, like I say, they fight against a lot of Muay Thai guys, and of course, like Sandai, you'll know that you get scored for takedowns a lot and stuff like that. And then
It's
yeah,
true. Yeah.
they have grappling. So he teaches a lot of the grappling background. When I said I did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, they were really interested. I'm not there enough to just start being like, let's go and do some Brazilian
Yeah,
Jiu-Jitsu,
no, I was just curious. I mean,
But
you've
yeah,
already kind of answered the question, you know what I mean? Like that's dope, dude. That's really cool. Well, man, I want to thank you for spending time on Bishop Chronicles. I'm sure uh there are a lot of you listeners and viewers out there that are observing this and understanding how cool it is. And I really, like, and I know that I can be over philosophical as a jujitsu person, but I really want to encourage any of you who listen, but especially those of you who train Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, to take some time to investigate, observe, and hopefully practice any aspect of the traditional martial arts. I don't care whether it's Kung Fu, I don't care whether it's Tai Chi, I don't care whether it's nunchucks, I don't care, right? Like these things are just important, because I think as Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and MMA, gi, no gi, whatever, pick up, I feel like there's like an inherent abandonment of what got us here. And I worry about that, as well as I'm always talking about the lack of philosophy in the modern jiu-jitsu and the MMA space. And I think that the biggest hole in Brazilian jiu-jitsu is normally known to be their takedowns, right? Like the takedowns of Brazilian jiu-jitsu are usually pretty trash, or at least compared to wrestling or compared to judo, or you know what I mean? Like Dagestani wrestling. But I actually think that the biggest hole in the sport is a lack of philosophy. You know
lack
what I
of
mean?
philosophy.
Yeah, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? So like,
yeah.
whether people start reading the Tao Jeet Kune Do, whether people start reading the Tao Te Ching, whether people start reading Sufi classics from Al-Ghazali or Rumi, right, or Shams Tabrizi or the Bhagavad Gita, I don't care, right? The Dhammapada, right? Like these are things that profoundly impact me today. Even before I started jujitsu, these things were starting to be a part of my life and they've enriched it. So I just hope, I think that you're a great example of what traditional martial arts can do for a modern practitioner of jujitsu. And
See,
so I
this is
just
the
want to
thing,
say
though. I
thank
think it's that sometimes I think it's the language as well, isn't it? Because I don't see that I practice traditional martial arts because if I'm practicing it today, I'm keeping it alive. I'm always evolving myself, and every other practitioner on the whole will be doing that. So if you look at
you.
Shaolin Kung Fu, people say it's a traditional martial art, right? It's one of the earliest forms of mixed martial arts you've ever got. You basically
True.
have a temple, which is just a melting pot of thieves and marauders claiming sanctuary. Then they're in favor with
True.
the government, so they're training soldiers and they're fighting with the governments. Then you've got like, they basically that was the whole idea of the Shaolin Temple was to protect knowledge. So it was just a huge library, not just of like philosophy, but of physical movements and like longevity practices, which is why it has Taoism and Confucianism within it. It's
Mm-hmm.
not just Buddhist.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like all they were ever doing was gathering knowledge, finding more knowledge, and then basically like practicing and evolving what they did. And the only time it becomes traditional is when the individual practitioner thinks of it as something that is fixed in one position. Because if you think about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, people are already saying, even though it's such a modern martial art and people are like, it's groundbreaking, it's always moving, and it's true, it is. But there's plenty of people that are saying, like, Gi Jiu-Jitsu, traditional. If
True.
you're bowing off, if you're doing the same warm up, if you're wearing a gi, you are traditional martial arts, and you need to get with the times. You need to be doing foot locks and all these new moves, and it's all
Yeah,
about no gi. In another 10 years, people will be like, no gi jiu-jitsu, Gordon Ryan's jiu-jitsu, that is old school,
that's
traditional, old man.
true.
It's everything evolves. It's
It's
just
the
where we
cycle.
are now. It's like the latest fad, and it's not that not a good thing. It's effective, but like traditional martial arts is just a mindset. If you're always trying to introduce new aspects and hone it and polish it and make it better, how can it be traditional? It's just because it's older, just because it started earlier, doesn't make it traditional.
That's an interesting perspective, man. You have given me something to consider. As you
Like you look at another great example of this is for 10 years ago, if you said there was going to be a combat Tai Chi, combat karate competition that was like groundbreaking, like UFC, people have been like, no way, that's a
It would have
traditional
laughed
martial
you
art. Yeah, that's a
away from the
traditional
world.
martial art. It's rubbish. It doesn't work. You need to be doing wrestling, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
That's the business. It'll never take off. No one wants to watch that crap anymore. Um,
Meanwhile,
and the style of karate is changing all the time and it's evolving. And those people, there's a few people in the UFC. What's he called? There's a really good karate practitioner in the UFC. I follow his stuff. I just can't think of his name now. But anyway, like those guys are making it relevant and it is evolving. And they're like, they've changed the shape of the ring, for example. So
yeah, the
karate
way, yeah, yeah, yeah,
practitioners
yeah.
have just then, and then of course it's been copied by CGI, which is like supposed to be the new
Yeah.
fancy version of, because now ADCC is old and traditional, you
Noted.
know?
No, and
And
I
now
remember
CGI is like,
I
this
remember
is
when
what the cool kids
ADCC was
do.
brand new,
Yeah,
you know what
and
I'm
now
saying?
that's like old and and
Yeah.
like unfair, and it's more traditional. And CGI is like this modern thing, and you need to ring this shape. There's like it's just if you have a fixed mindset about what you do, and you're not willing to be open-minded and bring new things into it, and cross-train a little bit and understand it, then you are traditional in your mindset. But it doesn't mean that you aren't forward-thinking too.
That's beautifully stated. In closing, you just got back from Lisbon, Portugal. You went to the GB Global. What is the actual title? Because I don't want to
World
botch.
Summit.
To the Global World Summit. So, can you tell me what that was like, and can you tell me what it was like to meet Carlos Gracie Jr.? And did you learn anything about him or about um, the sport in general that you didn't
Hmm.
expect?
Yeah. No, it's really cool. Obviously, being involved kind of with the team at the GB round day. Um, I wanted to go. The World Summit's kind of more of a, I'd say probably on the whole, more of like a leaders, people that are like
Yeah,
own academies, that
right,
kind of thing, like um, but obviously I don't own an academy, but I work within the academy.
right.
So I already wanted to go. Then I found out obviously Carlos Gracie Jr. was going to be there, which is rare because he doesn't travel necessarily to Europe much. So I was like, right, I
True.
have to go. So it's really cool. It was basically a mixture of seminars and jujitsu stuff that you'd expect at like something like that. But then obviously, like, how to successfully lead business. What I love about GB again is it aligns so much, again, seen as very traditional because they talk about values. And that's the thing, like, even talking about values in a martial arts context
Yeah,
nowadays is like
especially in a jiu-jitsu
traditional and
space.
old school. Yeah, it's like, but in reality, like for me, everything I do is led by my values. So why would I not
Mm,
be in within another community that is value led? So they talked a lot about how they were value driven, in terms of integrity and and all those things within their culture. So that was really cool. So there's lots of little leadership summits. It's in this beautiful five-star hotel looking over the ocean in Kashkai.
yeah, it
So
looked
I had
amazing.
had
Looked
lots of chance to
amazing.
go for walks and eat nice seafood. So that was really cool. So we did that, and obviously all the leaders were there, so we got to sort of hear individually from a lot of those people, and again their mindset about jiu-jitsu and them talking about their backgrounds. So that was really good. Yeah, Carlos Gracie Jr. was, yeah, like it's cool, isn't it? They say never meet your heroes, but at the end of the day, like every single day I go to the academy, I look at the legacy wall and I see, Carlos Gracie Jr., Hoist Gracie, Helio, Carlos Gracie Sr., and then
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Count
yeah.
Kimono
Not
on the
Punk.
far
Yeah, yeah,
left. Yeah,
yeah.
I see that line, and obviously Carlos Gracie Jr. is written at the bottom of the shield of Great GB. So it was lovely to meet him because he was just such a nice guy, super down to earth, really tactile. Not kind of you could, obviously with so many people that wanted to speak to him, he spent time, as he walked past, he'd like touch you on his shoulder, and those kind of little things that like they matter. Um, and then he did a seminar which was really cool from his perspective, like basic jujitsu, but with like a kind of master's mindset. So these little tweaks,
Yeah,
which was really cool. So loads of submissions from like Neon Belly. He talked
right.
about his background. So obviously I've read some of that, but it's nice for him to talk about how, he lived in this massive house with his dad, obviously, and Helio,
Yeah,
and like all these kids all just talking about jujitsu all the time. He talked about Holtz Gracie, and his like relationship with him and how he looked up to him and how his game was all based around Neon Belly, and that's why he really likes that position. And the seminar was based around that. And then at the end, when obviously Mike got his award as well, obviously he got his legacy award
right.
from them for the academy doing so well and them doing such a good job. He then talked quite a while about his background, about that family, about the fact there was fractures within that family, obviously, when they started becoming famous and the
Mhm.
UFC and people that wanted to compete. And of course, then that competition meant it actually broke his family apart. And for
Mm.
him, he was like younger. The family was everything to him. Like, so he was like, they're all going in these directions. I don't want to go in that direction. I want a family. So his Gracie Barra really was about connecting with, because his family then didn't talk and they lived in different countries and they were more estranged. Gracie Barra was about him building a new family, which is why you can see it so values led because
Yeah,
he's like, we have to
that's
stick to
deep,
these
man.
values because if we don't, this is what happens to families if we don't have values. Um,
Mm.
and then it's really interesting. He's talked about, his love of military history, and he was saying his wife always teases him that he believes in reincarnation. So she was saying, well, in a former life, you were like some awful military leader that killed loads of people because you're obsessed with military history. And the reason why you're here now is to sort of, he was like saying, build this like army but for the opposite, for
For the
inclusivity,
good
for
to
jujitsu, for everyone,
counterbalance
for
previous
love, and he
systems.
ended on that. It's like, this is my army, this is my family that is spreading love around the planet. It was really cool, not cheesy, not like
Yeah, yeah,
cliche,
yeah,
just
yeah.
really from the heart. So really all it did is solidify, again, my kind of the reason why, again, people get tempted off to go to these other academies and it's like, oh, well,
Yeah.
they do more no-gi and it's more competitive and stuff. But again, I'm not in it to be the best no-gi competitor. I'm in it to be in this martial art that aligns with all my other values that I have in my life, community and integrity and just quality time together. And if that means I'm gonna sacrifice 20% of like elite level training, I'll take
It's
it
worth it
because
then.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think I'll be on my deathbed going, yes, I was like the best fighter in the world. That again, I don't think anyone ever will be. Um, Most people, it's
It'll
about
only
their
be a chosen few, right?
well, and even if they are, though, I don't think on their deathbed they're like, I'm so glad I was the world champion of the world. They'll be, I'm so glad that you were with me at this time. I'm so glad that my family did this. I'm so glad that I got to do these opportunities because being the world
Experience and
champion meant
meet
I could
these
do all this
people.
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what
dude.
people remember. I don't think they're going to be like, oh, my Olympic medal, I'm going to hold that up as I go and go, I did it. They're going to be like, they gave me opportunities. I met my wife because I was in the
Yeah, and
Olympics.
I'm grateful,
Yeah,
right?
it's the experiences again. So to me, like, I'll happily sacrifice that for these like amazing connections I get every single day in my place of work. Same with my gym. It's all about community. Same thing. It's the connections with my clients. It's not necessarily that they're going to be the fittest person in the world after I've trained them. Yeah, I want them to. They're going to hit their goals for sure, and I'm going to push them beyond their goals and make them do more stuff than they ever realized they could. But it's the day-to-day connections. Everyone came to the gym yesterday, they chatted, we had a laugh, everyone enjoyed that time together, and we pushed our fitness forward. That's what it's all about for me.
Dude, that's beautiful, man. Thank you so much for being on Bishop Chronicles. Tell people where to get at you online.
Yeah, online, anything basically fit to thrive, fit with a to thrive coaching on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, any of that stuff, or just fit2thrive.co.uk. You'll find anything. Or, of course, Gracie Barra Rounday Leeds, if you are Leeds based and you want to become a badass,
I love it, man. I
then
love
do
it.
some Brazilian Jiu Jitsu.
Well, give everybody over at GBR my best.
I
And
will.
thank you again for being a part of this. And thank you for sharing your wisdom. It was really fantastic. And I'm really grateful that we did this. Okay?
All right, mate. Yeah, catch up soon.
Absolutely.